How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video here on the Nat Automotive YouTube channel, and in today's video I'm going to be trying to get my newly delivered C5 Corvette started up and running. So if you haven't seen my last video, definitely go check that out, because in my last video I took delivery of a new to me torch red C5 Corvette for my next big build project on the channel. I bought the car sight unseen at an online insurance auction from IAAI, which is like a competitor to Copart. The car was located up at their facility in Missoula, Montana, so quite a ways away from San Diego. But like I said, bought the car sight unseen. The only thing I did was got the Carfax on the car and did a detailed kind of like research report on calling all the different shops on the Carfax to get a detailed service history of the car. But other than that, I hadn't seen the car before. The only thing I saw was the 10 photos, and the auction was a little bit too last minute to try and get an inspector out there, because I did try and get an inspector out there, but they only had like 1 day's notice, so it just didn't work out. So the car on the online auction listing was listed as a run and drive car. However, unfortunately, when I got the car, that was not so much the case. After all the crazy butterflies set in and it just kind of sunk in that this car is mine, and I was able to walk around the car and kind of inspect it a little bit more, I noticed immediately that, one, when I checked all the fluids, that was the first thing I did when I inspected the car, and the first thing I noticed was that the engine oil was very low. All the other fluids were fine, the coolant was fine, brake fluid was fine. What else is there? Power steering fluid's a little low, but it's still filled up. But the oil, again, was really low. So what I then did was, of course, looked for leaks. Went underneath the car, and of course, first thing I noticed was the oil pan was really wet. Just to try and get an idea of where this possible oil leak was coming from, I went to the auto parts store, got some 5W30 Mobil 1 oil, and poured it in the fill nozzle on the top of the engine, and literally a second later I noticed it coming out the bottom right where the oil pan is, right where the drain plug is, pretty much. So at first I was like, okay, maybe the drain plug's just a little loose, but it was coming out pretty fast, so I think it was a little bit more than just the drain plug. So I jacked up the car after pulling off the bumper, which is now just sitting right here. I pulled off the bumper, jacked up the car, and got underneath it, and of course I saw a little bit of a puncture into the oil pan. It was about the size of my thumb, and it looks like something just sat underneath the car and just pressed up against the oil pan. So like I said in my last video, it's really hard to tell with these auction cars exactly what happened with them from the time of the accident to the time where it was sitting in the yard to the time where you get the car in your possession. So it was hard to tell exactly maybe when this occurred, but I did do a little bit of an investigation, and I called the yard up in Missoula, Montana, the IAAI yard, and talked to one of the yard guys that does the inspections when they get the car. On talking with the yard guy who does all the inspections when the cars come in, he said that they did start it up, it did run, and he didn't notice any odd sounds or weird things going on aside from the driver's side fender, which was rubbing quite a bit. So he said that they started it up and drove it forward, but because that fender was rubbing, they immediately turned it off and didn't turn it on again. I also talked to the yard manager and said that they did not drive it across the auction block during the auction. So that's good. The tow truck driver also told me that he was informed not to start it either, so he didn't start it, which is why we were pushing it around off the truck when we got it the other day. Basically, the moral of the story with that is, what I'm hoping is in that long period of time between when the car was first taken in, because when they first get these cars is when they do all the inspection and they determine if it's a run and drive, you know, what the collision type was like and all that stuff that goes on the auction listing. So I'm hoping that within that 2 months, so September 30th, October, yeah, about 2 months, 2.5 months of the car being there at the auction yard, I'm hoping what maybe happened was when they were moving it around on the giant forklifts. If you remember back to my video when I went to Copart San Diego, that's how they move these cars around, on these big 16-foot long forklifts. And I'm hoping, you know, what would happen was just the car was picked up and then set down on like a rock or something and just slightly punctured through that oil pan. Because like I said in my last video, those oil pans are cast aluminum, they're not very strong, and they're pretty subjective to cracking if they, you know, get a rock or something hitting up against it. And I'll show you guys once I get the car jacked up in a second here, but everywhere else underneath the car looks great. There's no other marks, dings, scratches, scuffs, you name it. Everywhere else is clean, just minus that one little part. So if the car was, if the oil pan was damaged when it was being moved around, maybe that means it wasn't started with no oil in it. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm going to be doing some investigation today when I pull off the old oil pan, looking for any metallic substances in the oil, and then obviously putting the new oil pan on and doing an oil change and everything like that. And then the next time I do an oil change, I might choose to send the oil sample to Blackstone Laboratories and get an oil analysis. I've been blabbering on a little bit, but I just kind of wanted to keep you guys informed and updated on what the current status is with the car and what the video is going to entail today. So I thought it was important to kind of fill you guys in on all the phone calls that I had and kind of all the thinking and the thought process that was going on in between when I took delivery of it and now. So the car's been sitting here for the past few days. I actually had to wrap up part 1 of writing my thesis project for school, so I had to get that turned in, which is why this got put on hold for a few days. But in the meantime, because the oil pan was punctured, and I'll post a picture of the little hole in it, in the oil pan that I saw last time, but I'll also show you guys again today in the video. But the oil pan was punctured, and the 2001 Corvette, which is what this one is, comes with the 2-piece batwing oil pan, which I'll put a picture of here. And the 2-piece batwing oil pan is a oil pan specifically, I believe it's on the Corvettes. I think all other cars with the LS1 have different shaped oil pans. The batwing oil pan is very thin, and it's designed that way because the car is already so low, so they didn't want a even lower hanging oil pan for even further damage. So basically, because that oil pan was toast, I had to find a new one to be able to put on the car. So when I was underneath the car last time, I took a picture of the oil, or the part number on the lower oil pan cover, and started looking around online and calling different places to see if I can get a replacement. Upon doing that research, I found how rare these oil pans are, or not rare, but how hard to come by they are, because a lot of people want them for their custom builds, and of course if they have them damaged they want a replacement. And I didn't need the whole oil pan, I just really needed the lower cover, so it was hard to find the part, but luckily I came across a shop that had an extra one. I called the dealer too, and they wanted $900 for the whole oil pan. I couldn't just buy the lower cover, and of course the gasket for that lower cover is another $60. But luckily the shop that I was able to get in contact with, they had one off of a supercharged C5 that I was able to pick up from them for a fraction of the price of what a new one from the dealer costs. So this piece right here is the top section to the oil pan. This is what mounts directly to the engine, and then the cover is where the cover goes on this part here, and it's a series of, I believe, 12 or so bolts that mounts to the oil pan. So this cover underneath here is the part that I was in desperate need of, and it was damaged just where the drain plug is about, and luckily I was able to come across this, and I paid $500 for the whole thing instead of $900 from the dealer. So it was a little bit of a bummer to have to shell out another $500, but I'm willing to do that to get this car running, because this is the thing that's limiting the car from running right now. So that's what I plan to do in today's video. I plan to jack the car up and get that lower pan removed, the damaged one, and get this new one put in place. The only thing is this new one is a little bit gunked up because it's been sitting for a little while. So I do have to kind of clean it off. It came with the gasket, but you can see that there is some kind of just gunk on there. So what I have is I got some Simple Green, and I got a wire brush that I can put on my drill, and I'm just going to clean this guy out as best as I can and then wipe it down as best as I can so that it's nice and clean to go in the car. So you can see here this bottom tray, because this is the lower cover, it's got all these baffles in here with little windows for the oil to go through. But this, the baffles help to prevent starvation and windage, and sloshing around when you're at high G turns. So that's kind of an interesting part to this oil pan, but at the same time it makes it hard to get in all the little nooks and crannies like back there and everything. So I'm going to use some Q-tips and a toothbrush to actually get some of this out. And because this is a cast piece, there's a lot of like little burrs everywhere, which are catching the pieces of the paper towel. So I'm gonna use the toothbrush to try and just get those little pieces of paper towel out, and then pick them up, with something adhesive even. Actually, go up a little bit higher. Can you go up anymore? Okay, you're good. Alright guys, so I apologize for the awkward angle, but it's very tight underneath here, and so I got the flashlight underneath, and I'm just trying to show a better, more clear view of what I showed in the last video. But you can see right behind the drain plug, right here, that's where the puncture is, and that's literally about the size of my thumb. So as I was saying earlier, everywhere else underneath here is really nice. There's no scrapes or scuffs or any other damage. So I'm like, I gotta imagine it was just some sort of rock or something that just pushed right up against that. So this lower cover is what I was cleaning, and I've already got all the bolts loose. So I'm just going to take those guys off with my, you know, a drill so it goes a little bit faster. And then I've got a torque spec for these. And then once I pull this off, I'm going to inspect it and see if there's any oil or metal shavings. And then also, we've got to take the oil filter off. We got a new Mobil 1 filter. But you can see here, the cradle is completely clean. No scrapes, scuffs. The only like thing that's a little bit scuffed up underneath the car is a little bit here and on the control arm, but that's because that's where they put the forks to pick these things up at the tow yard. But everything else is great. It looks like great shape under here. Also another thing is there's no rust, because that was another thing I was worried about with this car was, you know, if it was gonna rust from being up in Montana, but it seems like, you know, this was pretty well taken care of, and it was only a summer/weekend car. So now I'm gonna pull the pan off and we'll inspect it once we get it off. Ow. Yeah, they're back there, yeah. And once it starts to go, like once I take out that last bolt, I can grab it. I'll just need you to like hold it while I put the drill down.
I'll try my best.
It's gonna test your shoulder muscles right now. It's not heavy, it's pretty light, you know. Oh crap. Delaney?
Yeah?
Can I get a hand here? Can you just give me a ton of paper towels? Thank you.
What is it? Oil?
Yeah, it's because the car is tilted, all the oil is kind of pooling in the back. So I just want to make sure it doesn't get all over the driveway. I didn't miss any, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. It's probably gonna stick because of the gasket. Oh, there it goes. That gasket's in pretty good shape.
That looks really good, actually.
Oh shoot!
You're leaking a lot of oil.
I missed the frickin'. Dang it! And I was gonna look at that too.
Oh god.
Okay, wait. Actually, don't clean it up for a sec.
Okay.
Any cat litter?
I sure got some. Well,
See any flakes?
let me see. Oh, that looks good. Okay, this is a piece probably from the crack. I don't imagine that's... Alright guys, so here is the old Batwing pan from the engine. And you can see there is still a little bit of oil left. And here's the other side of the puncture right here. So it punctured up literally right by where the drain plug is. So I'm going to go ahead and focus the camera a little bit closer so I can show you guys the light, or not the life of the oil, but the kind of the status of the oil. So what we're looking for to show any signs of premature metal wear in the engine is any sort of glitter in the oil, and that will, you know, tell you that your rod bearings are going out, or, you know, anything else. If you just see any side of glitter and any like kind of shiny, like sand almost looking, that's sign that your oil is or your engine's like eating some metal parts. But honestly, the oil looks really good. It's dark, but there's no metal air anywhere in the oil. It all looks good, all looks, you know, it's brown, just like used motor oil should be. No weird colors to it, no sheen. I'm wiping my finger on the bottom of the oil pan, and I'm not picking up anything on my gloves here. So this is really promising. Zach, you want to just shine on my glove real quick? Yeah, so you can see there's no glitter, even when I, you know, scrape along the bottom of the pan. There is a little bit of sludge, like there's some sludge here, but that's pretty normal. And the thing is it's not shiny at all. Like Zach, you don't see any metallic looking glitter. So no shine is good. So it looks good. And another thing that I pointed out to Zach that is a good sign too is the oil is not milky. If it was a milky brown, that means that we have water in the oil and potentially also fuel in the oil, which is usually a little less common. But water in the oil would be signs of like a bad head gasket or anything like that. But I mean, I'm wiping my finger all up in the crevices of this Batwing, and there's no sheen anywhere, so that's really good. That makes me feel a lot better about this engine and the health of the engine. Alright guys, so Zach and I have been under here. Oh yeah, everyone meet Zach. He's a friend, always helps me a lot with different projects. So today he came over and wanted to see the car, so I roped him in to help me change this pan here. So we dropped the pan, as you guys saw, and we just got done cleaning all of the edges of the top part of the pan where the gasket seats up to, so that it's nice and clean. I also went in and cleaned out the oil pickup tube screen there. There were a few like organic pieces, or like looked like a leaf and some hair, or just a tiny bit of hair, so I picked that out of the screen just to be safe. But honestly, everything looks really clean underneath here. No signs of just anything odd, and that is really good. I'm really stoked about that. So now next step is we're gonna bolt up the new pan, cinch it down. I gotta look up the torque spec, and then the oil filter will come off next.
Looks like you're holding a pizza.
Where's that? Okay, it's right there. Okay. Now the thing when you put something with a gasket like this on is you need to do even pressure.
Didn't work out as well as it
Well,
now.
It's hard to turn it like once the bag's on there. Ah. Getting oil all over my new oil pan.
I'm just gonna move this a little bit.
Oh my goodness. I like Mercedes oil filters better. Oh, this is not nearly as messy.
Maybe we try a regular grocery bag next time.
Yeah. Thanks, guy on the internet.
Yeah, right.
Ooh, oh, ooh, ooh, ooh. Lovely. See how well prepared we are.
Mm-hmm.
Look, that's a Corvette here.
Like fuel pumps
Oh,
just
yeah.
went on, just check companies.
It's gonna take a while though. Oh yeah.
Alright, here we go.
pumps just went on.
Right.
Ship
Checking for fuel leaks. I don't see anything wet. Let me check the fuel rails. Anything look suspicious over there? No. All right, here we go.
He's adjusting his chair first.
It kept going off each time you tried to turn it over.
Yeah, but it just died.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, it should be done. Yeah, you can put it over. She's gonna, she has chili. We're gonna eat a little.
All right. Okay. It's running. Yes. Alright guys, so that is going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me wrench on this car for the very first or second time, because I technically did wrench on it the day I got it. I'm just so stoked that this thing runs. It sounds good. The only thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is the idler pulley is squeaking pretty bad, so I might have to look into changing that really soon, or else the belt might seize up, or the pulley will seize up, and then the belt might start, you know, pulling on it. So I don't want that to happen. But the motor runs. It sounds good. It sounds like a really healthy motor. So I'm really happy with that. We figured out that the alarm system works really well, because the car alarm went off and it is super loud. And I'm just so stoked. I'm glad that this car worked out and the motor wasn't a big paperweight. Like from earlier, the engine oil that was still in the car looked really good. We even ran a magnet through the oil that was still sitting in the old pan, and there was pretty much nothing that picked up on the magnet, minus like a shard from the piece that was punctured, because it was a big piece. So that's all good. The motor looks good. It sounded good. Everything works on the interior now. The seat is a little bit squeaky, but that was a huge step for this build and this project, is to get this thing started. There were no leaks on the bottom, so we did a full-on oil change. Tomorrow I'll top it off once the car is level and just check that. And the next step will be testing it and driving it for the first time. I got to make sure that the brake pads are in good shape so that we don't that we have brakes when we do drive it. So that'll be the next step in the next video, is getting this thing driving and then moving it over to my house in the garage. So I'm at a loss for words. I'm tired. I've been at this for quite a while today. but I am so stoked. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and thank you to my friends here, Zach and Delaney, for coming and helping me. Zach was a big help, you know, holding the pan up, and Delaney helped with filming. I was bummed that my wife couldn't be here, but she FaceTimed her, so that was cool when we started up for the first time. So I think I'm gonna stop talking now. We gotta get finished, cleaned up and everything. So if you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, definitely do that, because there's a lot more exciting content to come with this car. You know, I'm just excited to start pumping out videos on this thing for you guys, and it sounds really good. As you guys probably heard, the motor just love that V8 LS1 sound. So if you guys have any comments or questions, leave them below. Other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. You make yourself laugh.